Are you looking at purchasing a home in and around the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho region and curious what the most recent market trends are? In this video, I will be going over the real estate market trends for February and March 2026. Welcome back to my channel, Living North Idaho, where I discuss all things about real estate and living your best life in North Idaho. There were 293 homes that closed in our entire MLS for the month of February, compared to 310 from February 2025. 28% of those homes that sold for all cash, making that 81 properties. Now that is a difference of 3 properties from the previous month of January when 84 homes sold for all cash. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that, especially now that we're in March and the FinCEN rolls have started. And if you're unsure what FinCEN is, make sure if you are purchasing with cash or have a cash buyer that your agent talks to you about the rules and what you might need for those sales. Now let's take a look at the breakdown for those cash sales. 16 of the homes that closed for all cash were under $300,000. 19 of those homes that closed between $300,000 and $500,000. There were 17 homes that sold all cash between $500,000 and $750,000. 9 properties closed out between $750,000 and $1 million, all cash sales. 12 homes closed between $1 million and $2 million. And there were 9 properties that sold over $2 million that were all cash. The majority of the homes that closed between $400,000 and $500,000, which has been similar in previous months, and that price range had 68 total sales. But $500,000 to $600,000 was not that far behind, with 55 homes closing in that price range. 33 homes sold over $1 million in February compared to 35 in January. The price range with the most price changes was $600,000 to $700,000. Now that is a new price bracket from previous months, and there were 48 homes that had price changes in that price bracket. But $400,000 to $500,000 price range was not that far behind, with 41 homes having price changes. In total, for the month of February, there were 244 price changes in our MLS. Sales for the month of February were down 5.5% from the same time last year. And last February, mortgage rates for average for 30 years over the month of February was about 6.8%, whereas this year we were more around the 6% range. So that was roughly a 0.75% difference from this year compared to last year, with this year obviously being more favorable. So it is kind of interesting to see that sales are down, even though interest rates are down too. And I think a lot of that has to do with people aren't basing their moves on what interest rates are doing. They're basing them on their lifestyle, their life changes, and when they are ready to make the move. The median sales price for February was $527,277, which was a decrease of $23,588 from the previous month, and a 4.5% decrease from February when it was $549,990. That's a little interesting too. Prices were down, so were interest rates, but sales were also down for February compared to last year. The median days on market for those homes that sold was 80 days. Now that's for non-distressed and just resale properties. That does not include new construction because those take time to build, or distressed properties because those can take some time also. And as you can see, those numbers are going up. Of those homes that sold, 73 of them were new construction, making that 24.9% of the total sales new construction sales. For new construction, we are still able to find a few homes under $400,000. However, those are not necessarily going to be in and around Coeur d'Alene unless they're townhouses or condos. But if you're willing to go a little bit further out, say north towards Priest River, Athol area, Silver Valley area, or south to Plummer, you are able to find single-family homes under $400,000 that are new construction. There are currently 0 active short sales in our MLS. So far for the year of 2026, we have had 0 short sales that have successfully closed. Now there are currently 4 that are pending. And of those, some are approved short sales and some are not approved short sales. And what that means is if it's an approved short sale, that means that the current owner has already talked with the bank and the bank has said that they're willing to accept a certain price on that property. Now, if it's not an approved short sale, that means that the seller of the property or the current owner has to reach out to the bank, and the bank gets to say whether they're going to accept that offer that someone puts forward or what price they want for that property. Now, contrary to their name, short sales can take some time, and some banks are better to work with than others. There's currently 1 active REO or bank-owned property for sale in our MLS. So far in 2026, there has been 1 that has successfully closed, and there are currently 4 that are pending. Now, the difference between a short sale and an REO is an REO, the bank has already taken the property back, and so they're the ones that are selling it. They're the ones that are stepping in and saying what they're willing to take on those properties. For those closed properties, 37.5% of the sales, the seller contributed some sort of seller concessions at closing in those sold prices. Now, what that means is that a seller either contributed money towards buy down rates, it could be for closing costs, it could be in lieu of repairs that they decided to offer some closing costs. Just that percentage of the properties that close, the sellers paid some sort of concessions for the buyers. And that is a much bigger number than we have seen in previous months. And I think a lot of that has to do with, instead of losing a buyer after inspections come back, sellers are willing to negotiate in closing costs or buy down rates to not have to go back on the market and to get that buyer to close on their property. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that number to see how that plays into what the market does. If sellers are still having to offer concessions for buyers to be interested in their home. But that's also why we are seeing some of those new construction homes, builders actually, offering incentives for buyers. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that number because that is a fairly high number, but that also tells you the type of market that we are currently in. We still are seeing a fair amount of homes come back on the market. In fact, for February, 84 homes that went pending came back on the market. Now that could be because of an appraisal not coming in, buyer losing their financing, or things coming up during the inspection that makes the buyer want to back out. And again, we still are seeing a fair amount of those price changes. That number was 244 price changes for February. Now for those closed properties, let's take a look at the breakdown of what percent closed within a specific amount of time, how long they were on the market, and what the original list price to sold price ratio was. So as you can see from those numbers, if you're a seller, if you price your home right from the beginning, you're going to get closer to the list price than if your home sits on the market. And if your home sells fairly quickly, it doesn't mean that you underpriced your home. It means that you priced your home right for this market and you were able to find the right buyer. Versus if you sit on the market and wait, the more sellers are going to have to come down to get those buyers re-interested in a property. Unfortunately, days on market when you're a seller is not your friend. The longer you sit, the less interested buyers are. I've seen even sellers that list maybe 10,000 over not get a buyer within a specific amount of time, and then their home just sits there. And unfortunately, if buyers are not interested, the longer it sits, less buyers get interested in the property. If you are a buyer in this market, don't be afraid to ask for some concessions or buy down rates. Look to your agent for them to advise you, depending on how long the home's been on the market, if there's been any price reductions, how it looks compared to other properties. You may be able to get a lower price on that, offer less, and also ask for incentives. If you have any questions about real estate in and around Coeur d'Alene, feel free to reach out. My name is Amanda Cuspert. I'm with the Phoenix Agency.